Hey guys, how's it going? So I just got back from the Second Amendment rally in Ionia, Michigan, and I had a great time. And as you can see in the title of this video, yes, I did speak at the event, and I was one of the opening acts for Kyle Rittenhouse, which was a great honor. And just between me and you guys, I was actually kind of nervous, because although I'm perfectly comfortable in front of the camera, hanging out with all of you, never really spoke in front of a crowd before, so don't judge me too much, but only if it's good things. You guys can let me know how I did down in the comments. We're going to get right into my speech there. But before I do, shout out to all of my viewers who are there. You guys are totally awesome. You guys are the reason why I go to stuff like this and why I keep fighting for a God-given natural right to keep and bear arms. You guys are awesome. I got to meet so many of you, and it was really good to see you. Thank you to my friend Phil and his fellow militiamen right up there on the stage with me and all around making sure it was a safe event. And check out that pinned comment for Phil's YouTube channel. Also, it was awesome to meet Kyle. I got to meet him. He's a really cool dude. Got to meet tons of new people. Too many to name right now, but stay tuned. I'll have more posts from this event soon, including Kyle's speech. There was an awesome band there, the American Revival Band. Really good music. I suggest you guys check them out. And special thank you to my friend Tammy Clark, because she was the one that insisted upon me being added to the roster and gave me encouragement right until 5 minutes before I got on stage and said, you can do it, you got this, you're going to do a good job. So thank you to her, and thank you to John Rocha for hosting the event. It was a great time, and here we go. Hey guys, how's it going? So, we have the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's like the most specific thing there possibly could be, isn't it? It means if there were to even be a scintilla of gun control, it would be repugnant. Early Supreme Court decision Marbury v. Madison says that all laws that are repugnant to the Constitution are void. Now let's look at the Michigan Constitution. Shout out to Michigan and all the good people here. Article 1, Section 6. Every person has the right to keep and bear arms in defense of himself and the state. That's pretty darn clear too. Notice I didn't say hunting anywhere, or recreation, or collecting, which those are all very fine hobbies, obviously. Now, I love the whole Bill of Rights, but the Second Amendment was put there not for if, but for when they come for all the rest. They're coming for the First Amendment. They're coming for your right to privacy. You could go to prison right now in this country and in this state of Michigan for misgendering somebody. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that they started off this new legislative session. The Democrats took control. Very, very narrow majority in the Michigan House of Representatives. In the Michigan Senate, they have the governorship, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State. They didn't fool around. As soon as they started this session on January 11th, 2023, gun control was one of their top pieces of agenda. And we need to change this, but here's what is it's terrible, right? But here's what Democrats do well, and I'm using big air quotes for those of you listening. When they promise their constituents they're going to do something, they do it. And they started off with gun control, basically on the very first day. Then there was a tragedy that happened in Michigan State. A gun-free zone, let's call that what it really is. It's a criminal empowerment zone. Because everybody knows the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And people were there unarmed, and it's very, very dangerous to have gun-free zones. This person wasn't prosecuted for previous gun crimes they had committed, which shows that gun control doesn't work. And the more people that have guns, the safer our communities are. But these people hate America and they hate Michigan. So they started off with this gun control agenda. And they quickly passed an 11-bill, 3-subject matter package. We're looking at red flag laws. Those have been passed, guys. They're not going to go into effect till next year, but they've been signed by the governor and passed through the Michigan House and Senate. This is probably the worst, because it not only violates the Second Amendment, but the Fourth and Fifth, the whole Bill of Rights, and 14th Amendment. It wouldn't even be possible to have a law like this in Michigan or the United States of America, but here we are.
You could have an old roommate from 10, 20, 50 years ago that feels you're a risk to yourself or others. They can red flag you. The cops will come to your house. I did an interview and a video with my friend Representative Bob Bazat. He's a patriotic Second Amendment supporting rep in Livingston County. And he's a longtime sheriff, and he said, you know, that's one of his worst fears is what's going to happen? The police just come to your house? You don't even know, because it's not like a normal criminal trial. No, it's called an ex parte hearing, meaning they say take the guns first, then due process. That's a joke. That's no due process at all. You don't get to face your accuser. You don't get to come with your lawyer to put forth exculpatory evidence. No, it's not that simple. It's not just an ex-roommate. It could be any relative of yours, including ones you haven't seen in a long time and don't agree with the Second Amendment or your politics. It could be an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife, husband, boyfriend, whatever. Imagine how could that go wrong? And they take your guns, and then you have to come back and prove that you're innocent to get them back. This is literally insane. But that's not all. They also passed these so-called safe storage laws. Yeah, making it safer for the criminal, right? Because think about it. 3 a.m, you're asleep, the glass breaks. You're your own first responder, and you know that. That's why you have a gun, and you have it cocked-locked and ready to rock to protect your family, your wife, your beautiful children, right? Now, when the criminal comes in armed, because, look, all these laws only affect the law-abiding, obviously, because by their sheer nature and definition, criminals don't follow laws. So he comes in ready to go, ready to do death, irreparable harm, really bad things, and you're going to be fumbling with a cable lock, with the safe. Hopefully you remember your combination. So they call it safe storage, and a lot of people get excited about that, especially criminals, because it makes them safer when they come into your home. We've also seen so-called universal background checks pass, which is a licensing registration scheme, and it's also a confiscation scheme, because registration always has in the past, and I believe always will, lead to confiscation. Why do they want to know where all your guns are at unless they're planning to come get them, right? So right now, because again, these laws have passed, but they're not going to go into effect until next year. You might go out shooting with your uncle, your friend, your neighbor, hand him your shotgun for a few minutes. See, we need to remind all of the hunters in the state of Michigan. I was talking to former governor candidate Tudor Dixon last night. Hung out with her at my favorite state representative Jamie Thompson's event. She's also a 2A fighter. And Tudor looked at me and she said, how are we going to get the hunters involved? Well, obviously everybody that's here right now, you guys get it. You guys are awesome. And I appreciate you being here. But we have to do more. When we leave, we have to talk to our friends and remind them that, look guys, you could actually become criminalized and go to jail for a long time in the state of Michigan soon by handing your shotgun or your 22, it doesn't matter, to somebody else without first going through and getting these universal background checks so they can keep track of where every darn firearm there is in the state of Michigan. Now, that's the stuff that's already passed. They're also saying that they're looking at an assault weapons ban, magazine restriction ban. They've even put forth a bill that would outlaw BB guns for youth unless they're directly accompanied by their parents. Now, why do you think that is? I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? They don't want gun culture to be ingrained in America like it has for all these years. Because if you take the kids away from their BB guns, which is how a lot of people learn safety, it was their first gun, they got familiar with them, you make it foreign and people are afraid of things that they're not familiar with. You know, I get people coming in and making comments all the time on my YouTube videos, and they'll say stuff like, well, here in Great Britain, and look, lots of good people live there, but we fought a revolution against Great Britain, and we're supposed to be the United States of America. And they come in and they say, well, what's the big deal, man? They want to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We never even had that here. And that's what happens. When you remove a generation away from the Second Amendment, you lose it. And you could literally lose it forever. Now, there's a lot of doom and gloom. They want to restrict where you can vote. If you choose to exercise your right to keep and bear arms, you wouldn't be able to have a gun within a certain distance of a polling station. These remote polling places, it could be in a shopping center. Yeah, a lot of this is a trap to try to criminalize good people. There's so many, I don't want to bore you guys, but I've done tons of videos on my YouTube channel. It's 2A, EDU. I'm also on Rumble, Locals, all the other places. But there's a lot. And they keep saying, we're just getting started. Now, it's doom and gloom right now in Michigan in so many ways, but I want to give you guys a little bit of encouragement. And this was written by a man in his early 30s, July 4th, 1776. And when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, along with the other founding fathers, he said, all men are created equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's a beautiful thing. Just think about that. If you can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what more could you possibly want? Well, that's awesome. But we have a government here now in the state of Michigan. And what's the purpose of government? Well, Thomas Jefferson wrote about that too. He said that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that's you. They only have power if we consent. And we all need to get more involved. And I want to focus real quick on the local level. Because when you get to Washington, D.C., it's a swamp, it's a mess. I mean, Lansing's a mess too, but it's hard to focus on that. I call him the former vice president in office, doesn't even know who he is, where he's at. You're never going to get to talk to him, and you probably don't want to, so that's good news. A lot of times it's hard to meet your United States senator or representative. But on the local level, we need to start getting involved, because the other side is, and they have been for a long, long time, you need to make sure that you're keeping up with your city council, your township trustees, your county board of commissioners, your Michigan representative, and your Michigan senator. And there's a lot of bad ones in public office, but there's a heck of a lot of good ones too. And people mainly just call to complain, but we need to get more involved. Keep track of what your public servants are doing. I mean, they do work for you. And if you want a government that operates at the consent of the governed, if you do nothing, unfortunately, you kind of just consent by default. And that's what's happening a lot. Not with you guys, but again, all of your friends, people that you go to church with, people that you hang out with around town, make sure you remind them of what's going on here. Because we're right now in the middle of a paradigm shift where we have two factions in this country. We have people that still love America, and we still have people that love the United States and this flag. And now with the White House, they're flying different flags prominently, front and center. And there's people that no doubt want this to become a communist country. And we can never, ever, ever let this become a communist country, because if we do, our children could live in 1,000 years of darkness. We don't want that. Look, America's different than the rest of the world. It always has been, and we need to make sure it always will be. If we lose this republic, there's nowhere else to go. You can't go to another country. We have to stay here, and we have to fortify, and we have to defend these founding documents, which are supposed to be the supreme law of the land, right? So I want to encourage you guys. It's pretty tough in this state right now. I'm not going to lie. They're literally wanting to bombard us with so much gun control that most people are just putting their head in the sand. But this is nothing new. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, and I agree with that. And don't forget, all of your rights, they're endowed by your Creator. These are the laws of nature and of nature's God. And at the founding of this country, they had just formed the First Continental Congress, and they were getting ready to have this great experiment on self-governance of the people, by the people, for the people, where the only reason a government would be allowed to exist at all is to protect your natural, God-given rights. Government doesn't grant rights. They're supposed to be your public servants that are sworn. They swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the state of Michigan and of the United States. Well, about 250 years ago, Ben Franklin was asked by a woman. She said, "Sir, what have we? Do we have a monarchy? Or do we have a republic?" He said, "We have a republic if you can keep it." He meant that for the founding fathers, and he meant that for all of the people in between, and he means that for you today. And I want to close with this, because I know there's a bunch of awesome speakers. Kyle Rittenhouse is coming tonight. I'm kind of honored that I get to be standing on the stage he's going to speak on. But we're in a culture war, big time. It might be kind of cold right now, but if you remember the summer of mostly peaceful protests, sometimes it gets kind of hot, doesn't it? If you go back to the mid-1800s, we had the United States Civil War. A lot of people would say that it might have been a second Revolutionary War, and I wouldn't say they were wrong in saying that. There was a battle that had erupted, and people were literally sitting there picnicking on the side of a hill. And there were cannons going off in the distance, and musket balls were getting closer, and they kept on picnicking because they were actually in the middle of a Civil War battle, and they didn't even know it. And I think that's what's going on right now with this culture war. So many people in Michigan, good people in their own right, are either just sitting there being willfully ignorant or just ignoring it and not taking that extra effort to talk to their friends and their family and their elected public servants. And it all boils down to one thing, and that's all it ever has been and all it ever will be. This is a battle of good versus evil. Evil always has prevailed. In Michigan, it's prevailing way too much right now. And evil always will prevail when good men do nothing. So we have to do something. We have to be encouraged. We have a lot to lose, and we need a lot of winning coming up here because we are in trouble. So I encourage all of you, and remember, your rights come from God, not government, and the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, and that's what it means. All right, guys, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, man.
Well, it was a good day. So many awesome people there. And again, it was really good to see all of you. So stay tuned. More gun and Second Amendment content here soon, as well as more stuff from this event. All right, thanks for watching, and have a good one.